Changing minds one thought at a time.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Changing Minds online show, Empowering Women series. Good evening, Akina. How are you doing tonight?
I am great. How about yourself, Jessica?
I am doing wonderful. I'm in my apartment where it is nice and warm, but it is very cold outside in New York today. And, it's very grateful to be in my nice, warm apartment. Tonight is our first Empowering Women series of the new year. And I am so excited to welcome Aelita Lito on the call tonight. We've had so many different guests over the past, in our first year in our, doing the Empowering Women series, but we never had someone come in quite, like Aelita. And Aelita is an expert in Feng Shui. She's a full-time professional business owner. She does Feng Shui full-time. Now, I know that this year, I did a lot of work on kind of cleaning up and organizing my physical environment. I did use some Feng Shui in rearranging my furniture, and I definitely saw a difference in the way that I felt in my environment. And I am so excited to welcome Aelita on the call tonight so she can really help us as women to really know how we can best kind of merge our inner and outer environments and create some harmony in our lives so we can kind of show up as the best women we can be as we're working on our businesses and our relationships. So Aelita, welcome to the call.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm happy to be a first speaker of the year, so very exciting. Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you for being on the call. I kind of wanted to start off with, I know that, Feng Shui, I never really knew what it was too much until recently, and I know there's a lot of people on the call, and myself included, who maybe have a general idea of what it is, but they're not really too sure on what it is and what it means. So can you kind of just define for us, what is Feng Shui?
I'm happy to. So Feng Shui, in very simple way, is, in one word, if I had to define, is adaptation. How we adapt the constantly changing environment and how we tune into the space or in that environment where we're at. So we completely engage our sensory system to any place we go. So either consciously or subconsciously, we are like these devices, right, in the nature that we constantly absorb, process, and react or counteract to any circumstance. It's very like a chaotic to some extent, but we also follow certain patterns. And from my perspective, what I practice in general terms would be how I can help a human being to connect to their environment at that present moment. Because we're changing with our lifestyle, we're changing with our situations, with work, with aging, with sickness, with, there's other aspects with, increasing the family or losing somebody close to your heart. This is all changes that impact us on a daily basis. And how do we come to the balance? How we adapt? Because nothing is really kind of steady and concrete. And this Asian study has been around for more than 10,000 years. And it constantly is reading the space, reading where you are, setting your home, how you work with the external forces, like you say, you are in New York and it's a little cool, it's a little chilly, right? And how cozy you feel in your apartment, under the blanket with the hot tea. This is you create that nurturing aspect as well. So that would be very briefly what could Feng Shui. It's not just about moving furniture. It's really connecting a broader aspect of yourself to the surroundings, to kind of merging, expanding, adapting.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. I'm a firm believer that the world is just energetic and that we have this connection with the world, and there's always energy, flowing through us, and that, that energy we can choose or choose not to let it affect us, but that there's certain types of environments that are more conducive to harmony and success. Now, I know a lot of times, if you just kind of search for in Google Feng Shui in business, especially here in the U.S., you're going to get some things that say, put a piggy bank in this corner of your room and it's going to be full, and obviously I'm being a little bit dramatic, but, it's about saying if you face your desk a certain way, you're going to make $1,000 more a week. And, and there's some sort of truth, right, to being able to function in your environment. But yeah, but that's not what we're talking about tonight, right? We want to really talk about, being energetically the best version of ourselves that we can be. So, on that note, how is it that understanding the idea of Feng Shui and principles of Feng Shui can just help us have that kind of harmony and balance that, especially as women, it's so easy for us to get out of balance and hormonally, and with everything going on in our lives, there's just so much pressure, so many things women are doing now, which is wonderful, but, it can really be a stressor. And how can we use Feng Shui to kind of really take our life to the next level without kind of thinking of it in terms of that, that put the piggy bank and, the things. I'm sure you've heard it before.
I know I know what you're talking about. So one thing I can ensure, there's some empowerment when you believe in gadgets, and I do not practice the gadgets, which I would say, put the crystal there, put it this. If the bigger picture itself, where you're at, and if you are in the basement and no windows, no light to it, no thrive, no, it's that I don't think, or, for example, somebody's seeking for a relationship, right, and then they think that there's somebody going to find you and knock at your door, the Prince Charming prince. So this is just not realistic. There's something in Feng Shui that it drives in my practice is self-reflection of every individual to look at themselves, what is about them, what enhances or doesn't enhance their own abilities. It's empowering themselves. And a lot of times with my clients, I have noticed that after reading their natal charts, after visiting their space, giving this very objective, screening, a view, what surrounds them, because most of the time we surround ourselves, we don't notice. We become immune to the aspect maybe that's not a thriving Feng Shui environment or good qi that feeds your needs at that point. As I said, we are living in a constant changes. For the feminine aspect of our group, we're listeners, what is the feminine energy? It's a nurturing. Think about the women's empowering of, holding, nurture the, baby in a womb for 9 months, treasuring, growing within. That's the nurturing aspect. Just the revolving feeling how it is to run into grandma's arms who just hugs you and contains and protects. Right? All these emotions also Feng Shui because it's energetically kind of shows what we as human beings are. We like to nurture. We are loved to be nurtured. Okay, so we actually create that type of environment and we thrive within those type of places. So, that's when we face the situation, we should look to the present moment, what it is that we need, what we seek in it, in that aspect of the time now, not what's going to be. Because we also, in Western culture, we tend to rush our things and set our goals, way in advance. We forget the moment of now, because now is the present moment.
Wow, yes, that helps a lot. Could you give us a couple of examples of how we would look in the moment?
How we would look in the moment. Connecting us to, let's say, in Feng Shui, there's aspects of there's different tools that we use, or I use in my practicing classical Feng Shui, and I also combining the contemporary styles of pyramid Feng Shui that I combine more sociology, biology, chemistry, physics, all the aspects of the science is built in. Okay, so when I read the environment, when I study the charts, when I see what's the individual capacity and a potential in the space, I kind of put it on an equal kind of scale. And if the potential is higher than capacity or vice versa, we just make an adjustment. And there's a lot of tools to do it. For example, would be for the family who has kids, dealing with the relationship with the children. How you embrace, how you bring connectedness, bridging the kids to the grandparents. It's very important because we hope that we're going to be, at some point, also become grandparents, and our kids become parents. This is almost like, staying in the present moment, but building the bridges towards the continuity that cyclically repeats itself. So humanity cyclically repeats itself over and over and over, and we can look at all the old albums of our family, let's say, and see grandma and great-grandpa. So that would be one very, very important aspect that I always thrive and kind of enhance, is to look at your ancestral chi.
Oh, ancestral chi. I love that. So we actually have a question from one of our audience listeners.
Oh, great.
Yes. How can we practice Feng Shui, and how can it enhance our healthy living style?
How can we practice? Well, even you are aware or not aware of Feng Shui, you're practicing it all the time, because your natural self-being is your tuned body. When you are in balance and you're in a healthy state, when you're engaging all your five senses or six senses into the reading environment and counteracting and absorbing, you already are in Feng Shui. What I also would focus is what's good, what's working already to enhance for better. Okay, let's say in Feng Shui we have some aspects of, what spaces, what are your favorites, what are your good directions, what are your, thrives the chi, which one's kind of is a more yin aspect and it's kind of flows your chi. So you balance it out because both are needed. At the same time, the days are needed for work and night is necessary for sleep, right? Your body is naturally knows when to fall asleep and your body knows when to wake up. So the natural forces and understanding what's happening outside your internal environment is also very important. Following the seasons, following the chi nodes, observing, because right now we're in the middle of the winter. Even the worms would not wiggle. There's nothing really sprouting. The chi is it's the silence and it's the depth of the yin. The yin is just humongous. It's really, really, I would say, think about old grandma right now as a time and space before the new year really starts. And it embraces and holds you still. It doesn't make you rush. And that's what also for the transition. I know a lot of people are setting up the goals right after that first of the year, but they are not really following. These are the kind of intentions. But don't put too much stress himself to it to make this as achievement, because then we also get disappointed too quickly and disencouraged too quickly. So observing it's calmness and silence and this kind of cocoon yourself. Go with the time, and this is what we want to do. This is what the January for most of the chi is about. It's cocooning, it's slowing down, self-reflecting, going in, connecting to your ancestors to, see your depth of your abilities. That would be just briefly. Hopefully I can answer. I answered the question. What is it?
Yes, and how do we practice that in a healthy lifestyle?
In a healthy, going with the rhythm of the time. I know it's in our Western mind, we just we are driven, we are trained to be pushed, and for example, the the summers, like August, we're constantly trying to be productive. I mean, it's just the business world, or it's just the word of productivity, for example, could be slightly changed. What happens if you're not productive, but if you are more aware of someone or something? There's going to be more the aspect to counteract and reflect. Okay, summers are when we're opening up. There's plenty of chi, right? But it's also not throwing too much out. Staying in the balance, because the natural forces give you that energy. In the winter, when we are settling, a lot of people would say, well, maybe there's more depression, especially for the elders and stuff. Maybe that's the state when you have to kind of have a chance to reflect, slow down. And if we're not used to, in the cycles of time that repeatedly come over and over and over, we kind of get out of the sync. We are kind of thinking, well, what is that? So our way of adaptation, the seasons, our way of adapting the circumstances is the Feng Shui as well. And one of the biggest examples I would always say when I ask the client, what do you think? Who is the healthiest person? The healthiest person is the one who never gets sick, or the person who gets sick and recovers quickly? And my answer will be the second part. The healthiest person is the one who gets sick but recovers very quickly. And that's the sign of adaptation.
Yeah, I think that this out of sense. I mean, the idea, and I know we've actually spoken about this before, the idea of allowing, energy to flow in us and around us and allow it to pass through us, but being able to adapt to that energy and without it really changing who we are. And I think that's something that's really wonderful. Now that we have an idea of, what Feng Shui is and what it means and how we can really begin to use it to really enhance our lives and our, what are some practical strategies we can use? If someone is listening to this call and saying, well, that sounds really great, well, now what do I do? What are some basic principles? And I know, again, not like that kind of science of putting, a pot in a certain place in your room, but what are some general things people should keep in mind in regard to their physical environment to promote this flow of harmony and energy?
So it is a broad aspect. There's each situation is very, unique under the circumstance. But in general, when we apply Feng Shui, for example, for a home, the focus is how the energy pattern or chi flows to the entrance. And the second question is always, do we use entrance? Especially in a single neighborhood environment, so many people have a garage and convenience to drive into the garage, walk through the garage, and a lot of times people neglect their own main entrance, main door. What's in Feng Shui, that's the chi of the mouth of the house is just the main door. We're always happy to receive the guests, but are we becoming a guest, true guest, to bring the chi? It's almost like, when we eat our food, we bring food to our mouth and we chew it and we digest. But do we bring that chi and energy also when we walk into your own home? And everything also starts with, do you love your home? And home loves you back. And in most of the cases, that's the 70% a good Feng Shui. When we connect to the level that is the love is back and forth. It's just that you bring that harmony into it, and it brings back, it gives you, and then you just do the minor adjustments. When we think about the office space, is also what is the tribe of is the loyalty of your employees, how you nurture them, is the hierarchy is in place. What do you create? Is there the harmonious aspect? Is everybody are stimulated and equal balance? It's very interesting to walk the business spaces and the booths when they have like a cubicles, right? And how it's almost like I call it like little bees are in a comb, and then you see how individually they construct their own space, a tiny space, tiny desk, but it becomes their also life, kind of life to that moment. And does it drive you to come back with a positive, with the optimistic engage, or it's like dragging your feet, oh, I have to go to work again? That also is an environment. It's also your driving this. What is that chi that you established there, the mindset? And for the health, it's also going with the rhythm. We think we are in a process, when we are born, we go through the stages and we age. We're going, we don't die from, like say in a big term, we don't die from sickness or accidents. We die simply from birth. So our rhythm is that from the time we are born, we know that there's an end at some point, and we stay present, to the healthy present, to the present that we can self-reflect, stay, tuned to the space, stay tuned to the environment, like human chi, time chi, and earth chi, and balance it. Kind of, all the time on this, I kind of envision myself standing in this big bowl, and you balance in all steps, and just keeping it up, holding it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really emphasizing balance, because I think that's something that's so important. Like I said, especially for women, we do so much as women,
exactly.
And it's really hard. A lot of women who are calling, and that's not the case for Keen and I, but they're balancing, having children and going to work. And, like at Keen and I, we balance our school and our home businesses and our full-time work. And, for me, it's balancing my athleticism and balancing everything. And it's really easy to get fatigued, and it's easy to get overwhelmed and stressed out. One of the things that I know I did as far as like the way my house is concerned, as far as with Feng Shui, one of the first things I did to really help was to kind of get rid of the clutter. And there is so much in our lives, both like in our schedule, in our relationships, and in our environments. There's things we have that are not really serving us, that we don't really need. Either people in our lives that are not really serving us, either things in our house. I mean, clothes that we don't really need anymore, expired magazine subscriptions. And, as we are going into this new year, we've talked time and time again on the podcast about really making 2015 really powerful and setting declarations and goals. It's also really important, especially when we're talking about Feng Shui, to make sure we have a place for energy to flow. A lot of us want to talk about receiving, and we talk about, being open, and that the world and the universe is abundant. But we need some place for everything to flow too. So could you talk about that for a moment, and why it's important to make a clearing in order to receive, kind of in the principles of Feng Shui?
Yeah. Just the most simplest example which I can give to understand the importance of decluttering or clearing the space is, just envision you have a cup of milk, okay, and that milk was on your counter for more than a week. And then you are thirsty again, and my question is, would you add the fresh milk on top of in the glass where you already have a milk 2 weeks ago, still there? I don't think so, right? You would probably clean it up, the substance. You take a new glass and you pour fresh milk. So it also drives there's two aspects when I talk about decluttering with my clients, even three. But one of the most important is really identify the areas and identify your pattern of things, because in a current world we're living, and especially with all the marketing information, cluttered, like what happens to our email accounts and all the, it's just the social, there's so much electronically and physically as the marketing material comes our way. we get overwhelmed. The world is too big. It's a consuming world, consumer world, right? And everybody are driving and reaching out to you, to individuals, and you're basically bombarded on a constant basis. So if we can sometimes say, it's like, okay, when is our strong yes and no, and how we can differentiate those things. In your own space, decluttering is not buying more. It's about, kind of two things out before I bring anything new in. Let's say if I want a new pair of shoes, I almost want to give away two pair before I buy new. Do you understand that there's no kind of you creating the room, but you're not also rushing it to get it just because to get it.
Yeah, I have actually that same rule in my apartment. I actually have one of the things I needed to do in order to reach where I am today was to declutter my apartment. I had a lot of things in it that I just didn't need, and I had no room to receive anything more. So I actually have a rule where if I want to buy something new, be it a pair of jeans or clothes, if I want to buy a clothing item or a shoe item, I actually do. I get rid of two things for every one thing I want to bring into my apartment. And it's amazing because it just, it really does demonstrate that mindset of abundance and just faith in abundance and just knowing that when you are making that extra room and that extra space that you're going to receive, even more and better things as well.
The other thing is also just kind of a weakness is that a lot of people or a lot of clients sometimes can say, so I might need it some, and I was asking, okay, when was the last time you used it? Or when you need it, you can't find it. Sometimes we kind of hold on to one thing, the other, and, which kind of especially garage places or certain areas or rooms that we neglect, we're not using. We kind of, store it, and then we waste so much time finding it or so much kind of energy, like realizing, okay, I know I had it, and you still go and buy it because you could not find it. So the point is, do we have enough trust in universe or abundance of the surroundings, your external environment, that when you need it, you will be provided? And that's a big question to ask yourself. And this is what you building up is the trust that you will be provided when you need it the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we're actually at that point where we need to actually start winding down our call tonight, and I think that's a wonderful question to leave it on. I know, right? It's true. And one of the things that I've really learned throughout my journey in personal growth, and Akeen and I, we're all of us at Yolita, I know you too, we're on a journey of personal growth, and we're always getting better, and we're always improving and becoming higher versions of ourselves. One of the things I'm learning to do is really to have faith in abundance. We know that there's fear in scarcity and faith in abundance, and we're going to talk a lot about, that conversation of really just living in an abundant world and with an abundant mindset this year in 2015. But thank you so much for really kicking off our year the right way with cleaning up our homes and creating clearings and really just energetically connecting our inner and outer world. It was a wonderful way to start off our Empowering Women series this year.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So, Year of a Goat has not quite started yet. So the February 19th is the true lunar by Chinese calendar, when the Year of the Wood Goat. So whatever you didn't get done or made some mistakes in the Year of a Horse is going to be forgiven in the Year of a Sheep, a goat.
Very good. So we have a second year to celebrate on February 19th. That sounds great.
Yes.
So, and that'll give us some time for those of us who learned a little bit about Feng Shui tonight and want to get started on it, so we can kick it off on the February 19th. If anyone is inspired by you and wanted to reach out and know more, or maybe hire you for consulting services, I know you do offer online consulting services. How could they reach out to you?
My website, www.aelita, which is AELITALETO.com. That's a simple connective to the format of the questions or filling out the form. I consult over the phone, on the Skype, so there's a lot of ways to connect. Or by number, just simply calling 408-768-9496, and I'll be happy to help, happy to guide.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Akin, is there anything you want to add before we end our call tonight?
Yes. If you were touched by tonight's show, please find us on changeyourmindsonline.com. You can also find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, and TuneIn. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you so much, Alita, for being our wonderful guest.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful year.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's called in tonight. You know, as I always say, we love you, God bless, and make it a really powerful week.